Assuming we don't have zombies and everything goes to crap in the world, of course. And then you're just going to have to use guitars to bludgeon zombies. I'm sorry.
The Know Your Gear podcast.
Antique Rocker says, hey, went to Carter's Vintage Guitars while I was on vacation and fell in love with a Rickenbacker 370-12 RM. He needs his wife's approval. That's important. Like I said, the most expensive guitar is the one that causes a divorce. Will it hold value for 10 years? Will a signature version hold value better than a non-signature? So the value thing, remember, like I said, I don't like to talk about guitars like investments. I'm not an investment channel. We're not going to talk about like stocks. What you want to do is buy guitars low and sell high. I don't want to really come across like that, but it's important to discuss things I've seen. Obviously, I've bought and sold gazillions of guitars. I'm over-exaggerating, but you understand enough to where I've seen a lot of the variables. What I will tell you is this. I will never subscribe to the idea that only made in USA guitars hold value. That is not something. Obviously, made in Japan guitars have proven that they have value, and now made in Korea guitars have value, and of course, just brands in general have value, that hold value or increase in value. The next argument is like, is any guitar besides like an American Fender, a Gibson Les Paul ever going to have like the high dollar values of that? I don't actually care. So, I don't really care. If somebody's like, will a Schecter ever be worth $100,000? I'm like, screw you and your $100,000. I don't really care. I don't understand why they're $100,000 anyways. I get why things are expensive because only if you can have them, fine. But guys who buy $100,000 guitars are buying art. They're not buying guitars anymore. That's like I said, that's a rich person's game. And like I've said before, rich people take their junk to the auction and poor people take it to the dump, right? They buy stuff because they park money in it. I am not rich. I am far from it in every way. However, I have a few rich friends, like real ones, like they're rich for real. And I watch how they act, and that's how they act. They buy almost everything as a strategic investment. Like everything is like, I'm going to buy this car and then I'm going to drive it for a year and then I'm going to sell it for 20 grand more than I paid for it. And I'm going to buy this guitar and I'm going to play it and then I'm going to sell it for like, everything is this like how it's going to expand their portfolio kind of logic. I don't begrudge that. I wish that I had that instilled in me. I don't. I'm as dumb as most of us, which is, I like it. So I bought it. So anyways, what's the point? The point of this story is that if you buy a Rickenbacker, it is going to hold value in the idea that Rickenbacker will continue to raise their prices, new ones. So over time, it'll go up. That is real common with a lot of guitar companies. So for instance, here's where your two upsides are. For instance, I use the Mexican Strat to actually explain this the most logically. I was talking to Kevin today. Kevin's one of the patrons, and he was saying he just bought a Mexican Strat made in Mexico. I don't know what's wrong with me. Made in Mexico Strat. He bought it for $550. Really cool guitar. It's an FSR, which is Fender Special Run. And what's interesting about that is I think made in Mexico's now were $850 during COVID, and now they've kind of parked down, right? You can get them for in the high sevens, right? They've dropped a little bit. You can get a sale on them. I think I see 10% sales constantly. Doesn't matter. What really matters is this. In 2010, I could sell a Mexican Strat brand new to you for $500. Now, I know there's inflation stuff, but my point is, if you bought a Mexico Strat from my store back in 2000, let's say 9, you probably didn't even pay $5. You paid $450. Because remember, in 2009, we're still in a recession, so it was like everything was like whatever we could do to move stuff, right? $450. Now it's selling used for $550. I'm not saying you made $100. What I'm saying is that's one of the things that's great about guitars. It's not like you bought the iPad 1 and now iPad 10,000's out and your iPad 1, even though it still works, is now just junk to everybody for the most part. These guitars just don't outdate, so therefore they get to hold value, right? Remember Fender's biggest problem when Fender tried to go public and get an IPO, their biggest pushback was every product they make, they have to compete with. That was in the New York Times and I think the Washington Post as well. They both said, or basically one of those big articles said, Fender's biggest problem is every product it makes competes with itself. And that's not a great thing for an investor to want to invest in, right? You want somebody who's constantly like, got a new customer base coming for the new product. And so to answer your question about the Rickenbacker, yeah, I think if you bought a Rickenbacker, would it go up in value in 10 years? I don't know. What hold value? That was your main question. I don't know, but I would think so. I would think that in 10 years, it's worth what you paid for it on any given day. Statistically, that's what happens in the past. I understand that's not what you're asking to justify to buy it. I understand I think I'm reading from your question. If you could tell your wife, like, hey, man, this is like saving money. I will tell Antique Rocker, I'll, timestamp this, watch this, right? Antique Rocker, find this spot, get your wife, and I'm going to talk to your wife right now. Hello, Antique Rocker's wife, Mrs. Antique Rocker. What I can tell you is I've been married now for 24 years, and my wife doesn't care what guitars I buy because she has seen me consistently sell them for what I paid for them or more over and over again. And she knows that deep down, no matter what I really spend, she looks at this. Okay. I'm not joking. Like, this is a savings account. And if I die, she's going to sell all this stuff. So, I'm not saying she wants me to die. I'm just saying, like, if I die tomorrow, like, my wife's not going to build take a room in the house and put all my guitars in it. She's going to sell this stuff because she knows that it's all worth money, and it usually goes up in value. So what he's talking about buying it does have value. It's so if that's what it takes to get the okay from the CFO. I like to call the wife sometimes the CFO of a company. Your marriage is a company, and she's the CFO. She's in charge of the money for sure. Anyways, for most people. And but if maybe if it's the husband, it's fine. But anyways, in this case, that would be my suggestion. On the signature versus non-signature guitars, signature guitars tend to go up in value. That is not a guarantee, but it is definitely 60% of the time. And I say 60% of the time. I really think it's 90, but I would say 60 to be safe. If you bought 10 signature guitars 10 years later, I would bet good cash money that 6 out of those 10 are worth more than you paid for sure. And I've explained this before. It's because they don't make as many artist guitars as people think. Artists don't go away. Sure, they die, unfortunately, but they don't go away. We love Eddie Van Halen. Everybody's listening to as much of Eddie Van Halen, if not more, than they were before he's passing. And I'm just picking him because he's recently passed. So my point is, you're always going to have someone who loves that artist, and then there's always going to be somebody interested in their guitar, and if they stop making that guitar, then they're even harder to get, or if they don't make as many as you think they need. And a lot of times they'll oversaturate the market with artist guitars. That happens a lot, that they oversaturate the market with guitars. And all kinds of companies do this. And then everybody goes, oh, well, these artist guitars, they're not selling. And I'm like, yeah, but here's the problem. Once they stop, the artist is still gaining fans. See, you guys are walking this math with me, right? So if let's say an artist has 1 million fans, and out of 1 million fans, you can convert 1,000 of them to buy guitars. And the guitar companies decide to build 2,000 guitars. So it's twice as many guitars as there is guitar playing fans to buy them that have the money, that have the market. The problem is that in 10 years, they're still gaining fans, but there's still only 2,000 guitars. In fact, there's not 2,000 because not all 2,000 will be for sale. So in 10 years, when you still have basically 1,000 people, or maybe even 500 people who want those guitars, you'll be lucky to see 300-400 of those guitars out. So that's usually the logic with that. So that's what I've learned with artist guitars. And that's also my point. If you have an artist guitar and you want to sell it, or you're thinking of selling it, and it's not worth as much as you think it is, wait, it will be. I promise. I know it's easy to say, you're so nonchalant, like, hold it. I know it's money, and you need to recycle it back into your account, so to speak. But if you have the means, wait. I tell everybody, this is the big thing with guitars. You should never really lose money with the guitar, any kind of guitar. It doesn't even make sense. It's very rare. I mean, of course, you could pick some obscure off-brand beginner guitar and stuff like that, but even then, it has some value. But with most guitars, if the issue is you're upset, like if you're upset that you're losing money, then just don't sell it. Find a way not to sell it. It will pan out. They keep going up over time. Ebb and flows up and down. It still ends up. That's just, and assuming we don't have zombies and everything goes to crap in the world, of course, and then you're just going to have to use guitars to bludgeon zombies. I'm sorry. So if you like this clip and you'd like to watch another one, you can click right here. And if you want to see the entire episode of the podcast, you can click right there. As always, thank you for your time and know your gear.